Going back to the domestic terrorism. By the way, do you know who the domestic terrorists are?
The number one threat.
Yeah.
Who? Oh.
Yeah, I know you'd think Black Lives Matter, Antifa,
months and months
ISIS,
riots.
sleeper cells, jihadi Johns next door.
Oh yeah.
No. It's the folks with an AR and a pickup truck.
Ah.
So here's
those American flags.
Yeah, here's U.S. Attorney Merrick Garland, who I don't like, but I do appreciate the player on this one, that they put it in after this guy was denied.
Yeah.
Merrick Garland, like, all right, we're going to backdoor him. And like, good play. I'll allow it, but I don't like it. He announced the White House the new plans to focus on domestic terrorism, and specifically, they keep using the term and highlighting the greatest threat to American society, white supremacists.
Sure. The number of open FBI domestic terrorism investigations this year has increased significantly. According to an unclassified summary of the March intelligence assessment, the two most lethal elements of the domestic violence extremist threat are racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists and militia violent extremists. In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
And I would be playing it down if I said that it's a little concerning.
Yes.
So a senior administration press call from Tuesday included a section that read, one of the things we're talking about is the need to do something in this space, like the see something, if you see something, say something concept that has been promulgated previously by DHS. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did, yes.
Yes. DHS, yes.
I can never say Pete Daszak properly. Daszak. I don't care. Daszak?
Dashik. Dashak.
Yeah, like Star Wars.
Huh?
Is he Pasaki's cousin?
So this says this involves creating contexts in which those who are family members or friends or coworkers know that there are pathways and avenues to raise concerns and seek help for those they have perceived to be radicalizing and potentially radicalizing toward violence. Oh, sounds a little bit like communism?
Exactly.
Just a little.
Turn in your family members?
That is the most vague. You perceive them to be radical.
Yes.
Or to be tending towards radical.
Now, here's the thing. If that existed in a vacuum, you say, well, okay, they obviously mean terrorists. They mean, like the people who commit the serious majority of terrorism globally in the name of a political prescription that is Islam. No. Because then, when you read the entire context at whitehouse.gov, you see them reiterate what they really mean. And this is one thing, too. I think people sometimes are focusing, I don't want to say focusing on the wrong thing, but sometimes they in just discussing critical race theory, it makes people think that it's only a problem that occurs in schools. Right? And this is something I've been pretty familiar with, critical race theory, black liberation theology, and even the differences therein. It's basically just cultural Marxism. Because Andrew Breitbart, while he was alive, and I used to contribute at Big Hollywood, he brought out the video of Barack Obama's professor, Derek Bell.
Yeah.
And talked about critical race theory. This is something that's been going on for a long time. Now, I need you to sort of take that lens, pull it out a little bit. Critical race theory starts with something racist, equity. The goal is not equality. The goal is equity. If someone tells you that we must ensure equity, that person is a racist. And I'll explain what I mean as I read down. That's not hyperbole. So the White House, their fact sheet now that they have at whitehouse.gov, it says, it found that, meaning this report, the most lethal element of today's domestic terrorism threat are racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists who advocate for the superiority of the white race. Okay, hold on a second. Again, we just talked about Black Lives Matter, right? We just talked about these protests. We talked about Antifa. We talked about billions of dollars in damages. Okay, dozens of deaths. I know I'm repeating myself ad nauseum, but just so I drive that point home, now let's take the worst example they have, that you have, the Capitol, what you guys call the insurrection.
Yeah.
Any evidence that was inspired by white supremacy? White supremacists generally don't want to, as you described it, hang Mike Pence. The man is as white as you can. G.I. Joe thinks it's extreme.
Right. Mm-hmm. Nancy Pelosi, also white. They didn't like her either.
So in other words, what examples can you point to as far as that even is comparable, that it is the single greatest threat? Anything?
That I can't believe that they're actually, with a straight face, making the argument that we need to...
That's whitehouse.gov. Could be a gay face.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's true. I never know. We need to discount the entire year that we just had. In fact, It's a year that Vladimir Putin just said, we don't want Black Lives Matter forming here. Well, what is he talking about? Because apparently that was just the summer of love. If Vladimir Putin can see the coverage and go, wow, that's terrible.
Yeah.
We don't want something like that in Russia. Shouldn't that tell you that maybe you've missed it? Maybe
You know who didn't think it was Summer of
it?
Love? Was it Seattle Police Chief or Portland Police Chief, the black lady? I'm horrible with names.
I think
I believe it was
Chaz?
wherever Chaz was. So I think
Yeah,
it might have been
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle Police
Anyone
Chief.
who's heard of Woodstock?
Yeah.
We all remember Jim Croce stomping a store owner to death.
Right.
Right.
It's just, it's unreal.
And all the Antifa stuff, and even if you just isolate it to Portland,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the stuff they've done in Portland alone.
That's a terrorist act I will
Yes.
never understand. You took over 6 city blocks of a major city.
You handed out AR-15s
Yep.
illegally to minors, and this is really
Multiple
it's really
people
hard
killed.
to get me on board with hating an AR-15 story. Congratulations!
Exactly.
good
Yeah,
job.
you did it.
You've committed a miracle.
You asked a really good question. How in the world do you think these people were white supremacists? You know why? Because they were Trump supporters. That's the narrative.
That's the
If
connection,
you
yeah.
support Trump, you are
Well, I was
therefore
gonna
a
say, they handed
racist.
out
It's the
AR-15s,
go-to.
and they shot people.
Yes.
And didn't allow medics to come in and treat the people who were shot.
And they pissed about it.
And didn't the guy who was running the whole thing have like a grant from the government?
He
yes,
did.
for his studio.
He did.
We're still banned from Airbnb. So this is also on whitehouse.gov, their fact sheet. DOD, DOJ. Well, this thing should be DOA. DOD, DOJ. I
I'm
hate myself.
DOC,
And
Department of Correction.
and DHS are similarly pursuing efforts to ensure domestic terrorists are not employed. So now we said greatest threat, white supremacists. How many times have they said on CNN, the white supremacist faction of the Republican Party, the Trump faction?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
That's
one and the same. They're going to make sure you're not employed.
Yep.
So a MAGA hat might lead to you. Think of the Black Mirror episode, which actually happens in China, by the way, who we're not paying attention to for some reason. A social credit score. No.
Yep.
That person's a white supremacist. And we all see now that you have what? You have people from the Capitol, January 6th, from the events that happened in the Capitol, who have, this is a fact, no more charges than trespassing, and they've been held indefinitely.
Yeah.
You don't think they'd be willing to lock you up for a Twitter post? Or, at the very least, make sure you can't make a living? You want to act like this doesn't happen right now? This is basically legalization. It's a legal recognition, a legal method, a mechanism to incorporate the cancel mob.
Yeah.
In other words, right now it happens on social media, but they want to make sure that the White House has the final say.
Here's how this phone call would go. Hi, I'm Gerald's brother. He supports Donald Trump because he voted for him. He's a Republican. He went to a Trump rally, and he actually has a sticker on his car that says support the police. I think you should come get him.
Yes.
All of that would be enough to consider me potentially a radical.
Look, this is what they say here. Every component of the government has a role to play in rooting out racism. Okay. And bigotry. Now we're getting into really vague territory.
Yeah.
And advancing equity for all Americans.
I have an honest question.
Yeah.
Is racism illegal?
It's, that's a good question.
that's-
I think we all agree that racism is abhorrent, but no.
It's not a crime.
No.
Like, I think it's wrong.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
Tariq
To be
Nasheed
a
would be
bigot.
locked up. You're right.
Maxine Waters,
would be
Yeah.
locked up.
for crying out loud.
So why are there so many laws based on a thing that's not a crime?
Right.
Dave,
Now,
you bring
what
up
is
a
a
really
crime?
good
That's a
point.
very good point. You know what is a crime? Assaulting someone because of their race.
Yes, it is.
Murdering someone. But here's the beauty.
A hate
It doesn't
crime.
need a footnote.
No.
Hate crime is just a backdoor. And it's like, oh, murder is the crime. No, but you're absolutely right. It's not illegal. So that's also why it's important. They say
Yeah.
every component of the government has a role to play
Yeah.
in rooting out racism. First off, it's not illegal. It's horrible, of course.
Yeah.
We have an incredibly diverse group of people here. If they were
Yeah.
rooting out racism, we'd be skimmed over like we painted lamb's blood on the top.
Why would you want
We
to
have
melt-
Koreans, we have Japanese, we have black people, we have everyone, Latinos. It makes me uncomfortable.
Of all the countries, are you choosing the melting pot to be the racist
Right.
one? It
I
makes
know, yeah.
no sense.
And the word equity. Look, this is something
yeah.
people, that is for everything. For critical race theory. Because what is critical race theory? You have to look at the end game. The end game
nonsense.
is, 1619, the United States really only started with slavery.
Right.
Therefore, we need to rectify that and ensure equity. Equity it's a synonym for equal outcomes.
Yep.
That's exactly what it is. And here's the thing. You cannot have equality of opportunity. It's not possible. Equality of opportunity and equity. It is one or the other.
Yeah.
Let me explain to you why. If you say, oh, well, we need 25% of Harvard admissions to be black, you go, well, there aren't enough who have this SAT score, and look, there's this Asian. No, got to be 25%. You are now forbidding equality of opportunity, when you set quotas, when you say that there has to be a guaranteed percentage. Look at the lawsuits with Asian Americans. I believe it's Harvard Brown. There are a few going on right now. That is an example of guaranteed equity. It is racism by definition because it excludes people based on race. And the government is saying white supremacy is a threat, and we are going to try and guarantee equity with every component of the government.
Do you know what that means? That doesn't just mean government agencies. That means if you do business with the government or you supply a business that does business with the government, their hands reach all the way down and all that. You're not fighting the way we want you to fight this problem of racism in the country. We're no longer doing business with you. Your government contracts end this year.
Yeah.
Well, equality would be giving everybody the same chance, not lowering the bar.
Well, no, that's so Thomas Sowell,
or setting different bars for different people.
Yeah,
or taking the bar away from
that
people.
is racism.
Yeah.
Is every component of government going to root that out?
Yeah. Thomas Sowell has a really good point on this. He says, look, if you can't guarantee equal outcomes for siblings that are in the same house with the same parents, with the same opportunities, how can you possibly do anything in the world when it's not nearly that comparable?
Right.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.